It's a different crowd. So about 3.5 years ago, I got cast in a show. That event in itself is not strange. I'm an actor. If I'm doing my job right, I'm getting cast more than 3.5 years in between them. But this particular show was special because, well, for a number of reasons. The purest reason is that my mom also got cast in that show. We were playing mother and daughter. It was not a stretch. The play in question was called Beau Geste, and if you've never heard of this play, I will give it to you in a sentence or three. Basically, this play, Beau Geste, is about a young woman who happens to be Jewish, who is dating a man who happens to not be Jewish. And at the very beginning of this play, she is tired of her parents being disappointed in her non-Jewish boyfriend, not because he's a bad person, but because he's not Jewish. And so she concocts this brilliant plan to fake break up with her non-Jewish boyfriend, hire an actor to portray her fake new Jewish doctor boyfriend, and nothing will go wrong, right? Beginning of the play. So shockingly enough, I got cast as the daughter. My mother, will surprise no one, was cast as the Jewish mom. And we're all set to portray this very realistic situation. The other reason that this moment in my life was a little bit strugglesome is, as you recall, the character in the play is this young Jewish woman who is tired of her parents being disappointed in her non-Jewish boyfriend, and at that moment in time, I had just about 2.5 weeks ago started dating a very nice non-Jewish boy. And I was very nervous to tell my parents about this, not because I was just very nervous to tell. And to my parents' credit, they are much more interested in me being with all of their children, being with someone who's kind and good and loves us and treats us well, than that person happening to be Jewish. Good person, more important than Jew. So to their credit, I sit my mom down at a bar after rehearsal one night, and I'm very nervous, and I tell her about this new non-Jewish boyfriend, and she goes, "Is he a good person?" And I go, "Well, yeah." She goes, "Honey, what were you worried about?" But for better or for worse, the first 4.5 months about this relationship is clouded by me being in a play about a girl who is ashamed of her non-Jewish boyfriend. And so there are moments that you know, there are relationships that you know right off the bat that it's going to be a train wreck, right? Like you have these moments in your life that you just know it's not going to go well. This was not that relationship. This is a relationship that only 20/20 hindsight and almost all of your friends after the fact going, "Yeah, I never really understood that." Do you know that this relationship is doomed through no fault of anybody? There were a lot of reasons that relationship was doomed. He asked me out with a bouquet of 12 long stem roses. I received the bouquet of 12 long stem roses and buried my face in it because I didn't know how to answer. He told me he loved me at one point fairly early on, and I hugged him back. To be fair, to my credit, like a month and a half later, it was Valentine's Day. I bought the lingerie. I told him I loved him that night. It was fine. I was out of town. It was fine. I made up for it. We would get in fights over things like I had had a bad day and wanted to go home because I had had a bad day, but instead he had bought me flowers and didn't understand why I was upset that he had dragged me all the way to his apartment just to give me these flowers he thought were going to make me feel better after I told him I wanted to go home and not do anything for the rest of the day. We had very different ideas about what constituted an act of love. This is the part, by the way, where 13-year-old Rachel is jumping up on board and going, why the fuck are you talking about a boy? This is stupid. Talk about your life. But I figure, hey, it's February, Valentine's Day is coming up, and what is more relatable than talking about a disastrous relationship when Valentine's Day is coming up? So 13-year-old Rachel can take a seat. We just had very different ideas about how you show somebody love. In every good intention bone of his body, he was all about big gestures, big romantic, grand gestures of love. And every instant of that made me uncomfortable. I was not against grand gestures of love, but I want them to be, I need them to not be like a performance. I need them to not be a show. My whole life is a performance. My whole life is a show. That's by design. I'm an actor. I am so much more comfortable up on this stage in front of you guys talking about my life than if I were talking to one of you. But when it comes to like acts of love, it can't be because of how big and spectacular it is. And we never got on that same page. For Christmas that year, I got him a membership to the art museum. He's an artist. And it was in a tiny box, and there was and that was how I wanted to show him. I couldn't say the words yet, I love you, but I was giving him something that I thought he would enjoy. And so we were worlds apart, even when we were together. Later in the relationship, and later in the 2 years after the relationship, there were other issues. There were substance abuse issues. There were communication issues. There was a whole bunch of just issues that we never figured out how to talk about. To this day, we haven't figured out how to talk about them, and maybe we never will, and maybe that's okay. It's taken me a while. This year has been a lot of like letting go of things that I can't control, and I think in some way, the fallout of he and I is one of those things, and this year I'm almost there where I can just let that go and just be. But that different planet that we were on meant that we really weren't going to work out. And again, only 2020, and my friends who didn't say anything knew that at the time. I'm not blaming you guys, I'm just saying. Where the hell were you? A couple weeks back, I got an email. Not from him, it's fine, don't get nervous.
Half of the room just flashed.
A couple weeks ago, I got an email. It's from another theater company in town. They're putting on Bojesk. And do I want to audition for it? And I'm at work, I'm at a restaurant. I work at a restaurant. Why waste a good cliche if you don't have to? I work at a restaurant 2 days a week. And when the boss is around, because nobody cares, and because it's January and nobody cares, like I'm on my phone and I look down and I see an email and it's about this audition that's coming up for Bojesk. And I straight up panic, you guys. I stop breathing. I'm like, my first thought is, do I send this to my mother? Because mom wants to audition for this, but should I, and she won't see it otherwise. Do I send this to Anita? Do we audition for this play together? And eventually I do, because of course I do. And of course I submit to audition for this play, because I'm an actor and I want to play a role and I want to get paid for it. This is my dream, this is what I want to do. But I think the reason that I started panicking, I think the reason that I started sweating and literally like palpitations, I didn't know what to do, was not because I was afraid to send this casting call to my mother. It was because I don't know what that's gonna be like. I'm skipping like 18 steps of like auditioning and callbacks and actually getting offered the role. But I don't know what this role would be like. without the real life component in my life. And that kind of scares me, because if I'm not using my real life to inform this role, if I can't blame everything I'm going through with in this character on my real life, that person, that external person, then it has to be coming from me. And I don't know what that's gonna be like. And it's a little scary, and it's a little exciting. I wish this person all the happiness in the world. I want him to be happy. And I want me to be happy too.